Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to my channel on this beautiful day of January 21st, 2026. It is 12:25 p.m. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everybody is doing great. In today's video, we are going to continue with part 2. I started part 1 by asking a question. Who are the rejected, the souls that will reject the markup in Revelation 13? I asked this question because you might be one of them. In today's video, we are going to expose the serpent seed aspect of what we're looking at. We're going to put it to rest because everything has been foreshadowed. This is why I am really asking myself why I'm having such a hard time sympathizing with this. That's because it's been done before, and if we didn't have any sympathy for those victims before, we cannot be so hypocritical to have sympathy for these victims when the majority of these victims are dead. We need to understand that the name of the game is deception, and I want to start by not only emphasizing on who are these people which are following these people, okay, which eventually we are going to unmask. Nonetheless, I want to start by asking the question, what does the 1980s have in common with what we are looking at today? In the 1980s, we had Ronald Reagan as a president with the slogan, "Make America Great Again." Ronald Reagan was the president during the period in which the Franklin scandal broke, specifically with the allegations surrounding Lawrence E. King Jr. and the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union. Follow me, because we're looking at the same thing. We had Lawrence King, which was involved in the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union. Alright? This was the fall guy. Nonetheless, we know this because there were other people, but they were never persecuted for the crimes. So, what was the content of this investigation? The content of the investigation into the Franklin Credit Union, which involved allegations of child prostitute ring, embezzlement, and connections to prominent politician figures, began to emerge in the late 1988 as Reagan's administration was in its final months. The Epstein timeline, or let's call it the E-Files timeline, broke under our exceptional snake in a snake pit, 88, The Chosen. Okay, alright. So, we know that, there was talk during the beginning of the administration that this was the storm, the calm before the storm. We were sold Q. Alright? We were sold dumb bases. We were sold children underground. Right? Okay, alright. I want you to keep that in mind, because I'm gonna let you know what the White Hats have to say, because I want to welcome you to Blurlines, the movie. Who are they? The seed of the serpent. Nonetheless, they lead, and they are leading. One of the hardest things is for someone to see something and to expose it. It's hard. And it's hard because you're right so to be skeptic. Nonetheless, it's a different story when you see it for yourself, when nobody has to point it out. And I'm going to throw a question out there, because at this point, this is exactly why I am not getting no emotional reaction. And you need to understand, if you're like me, then you need to understand why you're not sympathizing with what's going on. And that is the simple fact that the people that we are dealing with are scripted, and they're wearing masks and meat suits. I would like to know, why are you wearing a meat suit? Why are you impersonating a human being? So last night, I'm going to continue with this, but I have to put this out there. So last night, I was really tired. By the time I really came to sit down, okay, like I was tired. So I thought that, there was a possibility that maybe, my eyes are playing tricks on me. And there's a possibility that I might be seeing things that are not there, because I'm tired. But then I said to myself, hold on one second. There's no way. No way. Because I'm not looking just one thing. I'm looking at two things simultaneously. So I'm listening to an individual, news individual, okay? And I'm noticing that the individual is breathing very weird. And I'm also noticing that there's parts where the individual is talking, but the individual is running. There's no pauses, and there's no short breath in between the long pauses, which there are none. So what happens to us when we talk for too long? We start to choke, we cough, our throat gets dry, and often we have to take intermediate breaths in between conversations or words and stuff like that. Nonetheless, what I was looking at was a meat suit that literally has been hijacked, and it forgot to breathe. This is a very prone characteristics of clones, synthetics, and hijack individuals. Nonetheless, I started to see that the face expressions were not normal. Then all of a sudden, I started to notice that there's something behind this individual. It's not a mask, it's a literal meat suit. That means that this is an empty cedar, empty shell completely, and something is running it. And you can tell not only by the connection where you feel that something is not right, but the simple fact that it forgets to breathe. The simple fact that it's trying too hard to imitate emotions through facial expressions, which are not normal to the individual and seemed out of character. Nonetheless, there was a moment where I literally caught the eyes and the mouth, which was the last thing that needed to manifest itself, which is the double road, Okay, in one moment he had regular teeth like you and I, and in the next moment there's like fangs and like sharp things sticking from behind, and then you have like a black eye, all right, like in basically in the right side, versus the left is a split reptilian pupil looking for like a split second. I thought that I was tired. That's what I thought. But in reality, this is happening more and more. So it can't be that I'm tired. The veil is lifting. Which brings me to this content. The scandal of Lawrence E. King Jr., a Republican. It was Republicans then, and it's Republicans now. You need to find the similarities. Donor and power broker in Nebraska was at the center of the allegations, which involved the raiding of the credit union in November of 1988. The notes on Franklin. This refers to the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union in Omaha, Nebraska, not a scandal involving a person named Franklin. The allegations of a child prostituting ring associated with the scandal were later found to be a hoax by the grand jury. What was overshadowing this? At that time, the Franklin cover-up scandal, which alleged a child prostitution ring, involved prominent Omaha, Nebraska businessmen and politicians in the late 1980s and early 1990s, was largely overshadowed by official investigations that deemed the allegations a carefully crafted hoax. What are we looking at? What did ABA start it with? He started with Pizzagate, Frizzle Drapple, and he, was using the HRC Patsy, okay? But it was a reflection of himself. So in one hand, we have the similarities. Back then, it was the Franklin Credit Union, which involved Lawrence King. Nonetheless, it didn't involve just the credit union and money laundering. It involved a prostitution ring. What are we looking at right now? With the island, with the E-Man. Lawrence King was the fall guy. The E-Man is the fall guy, because the other co-conspirator is in jail. She's eating. I told you guys that the numbers for this man is a 21 for the birth, okay? And it's a 21 for the death. This is a 42. 4 plus 2 is a 6. This man was murdered by a man. This is what the numbers say. Combined with the age of 66, who murdered this man is not a normal person. Nonetheless, we're gonna leave it at that, because there's a 666 here, alluring that there's something that we still don't know. Nonetheless, dead men don't talk. It has been appointed to men to die once, and then judgment. So if this man is alive, he's in bondage somewhere, just as 1980 under The mega is an 18, which is a bondage. Things are foreshadowing itself, and it's time to catch up, and numbers don't lie. Nonetheless, 45 was the one for number 88 back in 2017. He skipped 46, but he won 47. So we got the 911 code, which was there all along. Nonetheless, we got questions to ask, because 46 years later to the year of 1980 and the Franklin cover-up, we have this e-file under the Democrats, which is an opposition. So what are we looking at? You need to make sense of it. Nonetheless, we need to understand who they are and who they are covering. And we also need to understand that before our chosen became a chosen, he was just a regular man living life and doing things that 90% of us would not approve. He's a devil's advocate. He's not clean. Neither is the devil innocent. Which part you don't understand? This is why I'm having a hard time really, having sympathy or any kind of emotions for what's going on, because in reality I already seen it. Because when you listen to the star witness, Paul Bellucci and the other girl, which they never mentioned, okay, you start to see similarities, you start to see connections. Then all of a sudden a man appears. Up to now we've seen women, never men. Now all of a sudden a man appears willing to talk about what happened, willing to shed light into the missing pieces. Then you start getting a picture of the extracurricular activities that our exceptional chosen has been involved with, which he is so desperately trying to disassociate himself from. But nonetheless, he told you he was a snake before you took him in. So, tough it up, because we in this for the long run. Unfortunately, he ain't going nowhere. And this, just as this was covered up, this is going to be covered up just as well. And he's going to do something and you're going to love him again. Because if you forgot about Paul Bonacci, then you forgot about everybody else. Sooner or later they're going to forget, because you don't know the similarities. Like, you still don't understand. The official findings of a host in July 1919 of Douglas County grand jury determined the abuse allegations were basically instead indicating two of the original accusers on perjury charges. Conviction of Lawrence E. King, Jr. While allegations of a child sex ring were dismissed, Lawrence E. King, Jr., manager of the Franklin Municipal Federal Credit Union, was convicted of embezzling $39 million, shifting public focus from the sex scandal to financial fraud. You see how they got the people? They're gonna do the same exact thing. Expect it, because it's coming. The man is dead. If the man was alive, trust me, things were gonna go completely different. Because he was set to testify, but to testify against who? Not only that, there was a betrayal here. And I firmly believe that our exceptional didn't really think that this man would blackmail him, because in reality this is a student, okay, going against his teacher. You're looking at a teacher and student relationship where this man literally wanted to be like this man. And as our ADA collects things and has a lot of luxury, so do we see similarities on this man. But this man collects depravity, because he's not a man of wealth. He did not grow up as our ADA did. Our ADA grew up under a gold spoon. This man didn't. This man had to build himself up, but his ambitions were not just greedy, but debrile. Like, when you really sit down to look at this show, oh yeah, this is a movie, this is a show. Hold on one second. Let me pull up my screenshots. Hold on one second. Let me tell you what the white hat said. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Listen up. 2017 military tribunals. Imagine that you are HRC and friends, and it's early November 2017. If you were convicted of treason in 2017 in a secret military tribunal, would you choose the death penalty or life in prison to play a role in the upcoming 2018 mega movie? Part 1 of 1, the leverage. Here's how your death penalty becomes life in prison. You sign a full written confession. You confess every crime on video. You surrender all assets and wealth. You allow social media to take over. You are given a new phone and computer. You are implanted with tracking. You agree to 24/7, 365 days protection. You are done if Trump team is harmed. You are done if you cross any red line. You are told to play a specific role. You get to go to jail if the entire plan works. Otherwise, your original sentence happens. I don't think that we have many choices here, do we? It would take a great heart to choose death. But it would take a coward to play this sick game. Because this is a game. This is a movie. Like I told you, you're in a movie. Let's continue to read. Let's go to part 2. Part 2, the post. Let's assume Q's post, number 1, already happened in November of 2017. Oh, this is the storm. But this is the calm before the storm. And we got some of the best military generals here. And blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, look at these attached Q posts for a few clues. Ask yourselves, does HRC say stupid things in public now? Ask yourselves, does HRC appear in public less often? Ask yourself, what does Trump gain from her freedom? Ask yourself, what is the only leverage Trump has on her? Ask yourselves, what would Trump make a deal to save the children? What children? What children? Hold on a second before I go into part 3. Hold on a second. We gotta ask the question. Question. The FBI was tipped in 1990 about the incident in 1984 in Lake Michigan. 88. Where's the baby and what happened in Lake Michigan? Question. So, sir, what children are you protecting or saving? Oh, hold on one second. Oh, this was before he took on the task. But does it matter? But does it matter? Not just that, but shall we mention that, you know, down the road, he literally tried to build a casino boathouse in Lake Michigan. What's going on here? It doesn't look like we're dealing with a normal individual, but these are characters of sociopath. Okay, let's continue part 3 of 3, the script. The real script is genius, is elegant, simple, and guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed in this world but death. I think they forgot that part. Everything else is game on. It goes either way. It's a double-edged sword. It depends on the energy you put out, is what you're going to receive. Arrests are easy. It's much harder to destroy an evil institution like the deep state. Stop. So this is all about the deep state. This is all about the tunnels. This is all about the children. Pizzagate, Frazzle dropped, Anthony Weiner's laptop. This is about them. This is about the Democrats. This is confined to the Democrats. But what about the Republicans? What about what they've done in the past? Are they clean? Can we confide in these people? Can we trust these people? Because they're showing us this, but this is a reflection of them. Because when you look into the past, they're dirty. They were dirty. How did they clean themselves? Does the white hats know? What kind of game is Cobra and G.I. Joe playing? What kind of sick game is this? Let's continue to read. So arrests are easy. It's much harder to destroy an evil institution like the deep state or media than a person. The real goal is to make them destroy their own institutions by having them act a certain way in public to tarnish their institutions when the truth comes out. This behavior will ultimately make all Americans learn, psychological war, to despise them, their crimes. They will be told to unfairly attack Trump until the truth is dropped. And then they will be told to take all the blame and praise Trump's actions. Checkmate. So let's go back to Lawrence King. So let's ask the question. What is the difference between the Franklin cover-up of the 1980s under the Mega versus the E-Files under 88? Let's read. The Franklin cover-up of the late 1980s and the E-Files scandals of 2000 to 2019 are two separate, distinct, high-profile child sex trafficking investigations. Through investigative journalists like Nick Bryan argue that the letters is a carbon copy or continuation of the structural corruption found in the former. Both cases involve allegations of elite, nationwide or international trafficking networks shielded by power, well-connected individuals. The key difference, timeline and location. The Franklin scandal originated in Omaha, Nebraska in the 1988 to 1990 Center on the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union. The E scandal spanned roughly 2 decades, primarily based in Palm Beach, Florida, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Key perpetrators. The Franklin scandal centered on Lawrence Larry King, a Republican Party donor and a credit union manager alongside Associate Craig Spence, the EK centers on the E-man and his accomplices, Ghislaine Maxwell. But they left out somebody. They left out the teacher. And they left out the means by which they were conducting their activities. Because if this is to be believed, then we need to investigate Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and any other pageant that involves children. Because this, just as he had and was managing the Franklin Community Federal Credit Union, there has to be a means to acquire victims. Because this is how he was acquiring victims. Not only that, this involved a whole bunch of things. Let's continue. Evidence and public records. The Franklin scandal was largely suppressed with a plan. 1993 documentary Conspiracy of Silence, which was canceled, and many allegations dismissed by grand juries as a hoax or a satanic panic. Conversely, the Epstein case resulted in substantial documented evidence, including flight logs and black books of constant and thousands of pages of unsealed court document. Legal outcomes. Larry King was convicted of financial crimes, embezzlement, but not the sex abuse allegations. Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of soliciting a minor in 2008 and died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial for sex trafficking, while Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking. Common denominators. Investigator Nick Bryan highlighted that Attorney General William Barr, under Bush I Sr. father, was involved in the Franklin cover-up. Yes, he was, and so was Reagan. And later under Trump was Attorney General during the Epstein case, suggesting a continuity in how these elite networks were protected and continue to be protected and don't expect any justice, because justice is not meant for us, but it comes from the divine. Where do you stand? Do you see the seed of the serpent? Do you see the character? Do you see that we do not learn when we got these people in power? Do you not understand that the end is approaching? Do you not understand that if we have another repetition of this madness, we won't be here to acknowledge it? Do you not understand that the normal mind to be able to listen, analyze, and come to terms no longer exists? Do you not understand that people from my generation are barely coherent? Not that my generation cares, because they don't. My generation was a science experiment gone wrong, because the moment that they gave us that key, we saw freedom. We saw a way out from our psychotic, psychopathic parents, which the system, I don't know what the system did to these people. But our parents were wicked and evil. Key similarities. Both scandals involve allegations of elite blackmail, trafficking underage victims to prominent politicians and business leaders to gain leverage, intelligence involving allegations that traffic were connected to or protected by intelligence agencies, mysterious death. Key witnesses of investigations in the Franklin case died or fled, similar to the controversial nature of the E's death. In summary, the Franklin scandal was a 1980s largely suppressed regional to national scandal, while the E-files are a 21st century high documented international scandal. Do you see the difference? So, we need to also address the 2005 Lawrence Franklin espionage scandal, which occurred during the George W. Bush administration, but based on the reference to power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal. The question refers to the 1988 Nebraska scandal. Nonetheless, when I look at the evidence that is coming out from the Sasha rally, which is no coincidence, it reminds me of Paul Bonacci. And the descriptions of Paul Bonacci are a little bit more gruesome, if you ask me. Nonetheless, a victim has a mechanism of protection where it can disattach itself when speaking about these things. Of course, I'm not looking at the physical person doing the interview as I did when I was, doing my research a very long time ago into this. This information is not new. I've been known this. Just like I knew about Watergate, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't really know, The majority of us just believe the narrative, but the devil's in the details. We're looking at repetition. We're looking at foreshadowing. And we're looking at a confrontation of a point of no return. What's overshadowing the e-file, the immigration, the mass shootings that are happening under brutality, under violation of rights? It's a different era. It's a different time. What is happening now would never have stood back then. It's too gruesome. Paul Bonacci, in his testimony, spoke about cages, spoke about children, he spoke about Johnny Gosch, he spoke about the simple fact that he says that he helped abduct the child. If you don't know who Johnny Gosch is, Johnny Gosch's picture was in the milk cartons for the longest back in the 1980s. He was a child that, was taken from a paper boy's route and kidnapped, and nobody ever saw him again. His mother went through a lot. His mother spoke. His mother knew. She felt it. And, that's what sparked me to do my own research when I listened to the screaming mother. She knew somebody took her son. Just like I know somebody killed this man. This man didn't hang himself. Because the numbers don't lie. But they want to lie. Well, you can't lie to me. Because I don't believe a word these people say. I don't. So, we need to understand what it is for what it is. Because this is the seed of the serpent. And this seed of the serpent is leading many astray. And it's diabolical in nature. And it's nothing but meat suits. We got bigger problems coming our way. And these people in reality, they're a problem. But they're not in our face problem. They're a television problem. The majority of us will never see these people face to face. Nonetheless, we need to understand what is happening for what is happening. Because this is the seed of the serpent manifesting itself, causing confusion. 88 told you he is a snake in the snake pit. He told you he was a snake when you took him in. He was not talking about no freaking border patrol. He was talking about himself. Just like every time that he would accuse HRC, he was speaking of himself. These two individuals are not any different. The only thing different is the time. She's not a devil's advocate. He is. She's a willing participant. She chose this path. I want you to understand what Aleister Crowley said about these professions. But I'm going to read the last part of the movie. Part 5 of 5. yourselves why the people above act so oddly. These are the people that we've been looking at. These are the people there. And these are the people that were in the scene between 2017 all the way up to now. Some are here, some are not. Patriots are still very much at risk. Patriots is a movement under MAGA. MAGA stands for magician, Magoo. You need to understand that. I have some information on that I can share. Patriots are still very much at risk. And special operations continue, especially underground and globally, with rogue actors. However, once they attacked Trump in Vegas in October 2017, and once the Saudi Arabian government was overthrown, Putin had all the rights in the world to to convene these military tribunals. That's why Q started posting in October 2017. The biggest battle were already fought and won. Really? Okay. Trump went travel to Asia and fixed China and NK in November 2017. For all we know, these military tribunals were held starting on January 21st, 2017. You would only need about 50 of them to deal with the characters above, and it would only take a week for any single trial or skeptical question. So ask yourselves, if the 2017 and 2018 behavior of the people above make any sense to you without this theory. So we got the deep state and we got Congress, which are one of the same, basically. They are being shown to us as the Democratic Party. But if you flip this and you put it into content with the Franklin scandal 46 years ago, which stands for number 10, which no coincidence that all this is coming out now under 2026, which stands for number 10, which, by the way, number 10 stands for testimony, law, and responsibility. It's a game. It's a show. Many tears gotta fall, but it's all in the game. This is why I started to ask myself, what's going on that I'm not feeling nothing? Like, what's really going on? It's like listening to nothing. But then when this man popped up and I listened to him, everything just came connecting each other. Everything came cracking down. But I am aware of the incident of the Franklin scandal. I am aware of the allegations. I am aware. I listen to the victims. I listen to every single video that Paul spoke about, that he spoke on. He was in the Geraldo show. Like, the man was everywhere. Nonetheless, it stood with me. What I'm looking at, it's a carbon copy on a different level and a different content. But the similar players. It started with them. There was no mention of the Democratic Party then. Now, look. The same thing that happened with the news about the MK Ultra experiments that were done to American citizens during the O.J. Simpson trial, which the O.J. Simpson trial overshadowed that news, but it came out, and our late President Clinton gave that speech, but nobody was paying attention because everybody was too interested in the O.J. Simpson. Nonetheless, the O.J. Simpson stood for the division of a complete generation. We were never the same after that. Black and white ceased to exist as black and white. Now it became a racial thing. It became a means to go against people and to incite hatred in people, division. Nonetheless, it happened, it came, and it went. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. And this is where we are. And there is no denial. In 2019, the E-man was denied bail. In August of 2019, he was found dead. Okay, after a second attempt, merely 1 month later. Alright? You need to understand this is a number 12. This is governmental perfection. You also need to understand, if this man was really an asset, then they really didn't value him. But we also need to put into context, who would you pick? Would you pick a man that, had his daughter marry into the synagogue of Satan? Or will you pick an asset that you already, got everything you needed from, and it's putting your family all right, this unholy union into jeopardy. Who holds more weight? I'm going to go for the marriage because it's a pact. Marriage to these people is a pact. There's a reason it's happening. Nonetheless, we need to understand we're in a movie. Now, I also need to remind you that there's two ADA walking around. And I've been saying this for a long time. There's two of them. So I really would like to ask the question, who is the one that these people are speaking of? Because this is a sadistic, psychopathic individual that wants to kill everything and anything, and animals are not excluded, according to the accounts of Mr. Sasha. So if we are to believe the accounts of Sasha, and we are to believe the accounts of Paul Bernacchi, then you need to understand that both cases involved animals and puppies, and snuff films, and the murder of people, boys and girls. And they were young, they were children, and were being used to recruit other children and to bring them in. He spoke about it. He told the whole entire story. Nobody believed him. Nobody believed him. But he won the lawsuit against King. But nobody believed him. And they wanted to charge him. This is serious stuff we're dealing with here. This is serious stuff. This is why we need to be cautious of what's going on, because everything right now from this point on is bait. And we're not fishes to fall in bait. Caution. I'm going to leave it here. I think I have said enough. And I'm going to come back with part 3. And until then, I want everybody to stay safe. Because in reality, this is madness. It's madness. But I'm here to tell you, it's a movie. Welcome to the movie. Welcome. Blurlines, the movie. Who are they? The seed of Satan. Being run by the devil's advocate. And he's going to bring the system down. And he's going to expose everything. And he's going to come up like the king he is. There's two of him. There's two of him. And we got to understand that the majority of these synthetic reptilian clones are right there in our faces. And you need to ask yourselves why they're wearing masks and why they're wearing meat suits. Why are they impersonating humans? Key question. Until next time, everyone. Yeah, bless your path into the truth. Always, my friends. I'll see you on part 3. Take care. Thank you for joining me, everyone.